Welcome to this assembly guide for the Najam Simtec S120 pedals. If you have already purchased our products, I would like to thank you for supporting us. Before we begin with the assembly process, let's go over the packaging contents. Please use hand protective gear. These components have sharp edges and can cause injury. To demonstrate properly, I'm not wearing any in this guide. We begin the throttle assembly by mounting the load cell on the mounting plate with the M3 screws and nuts. Please make sure to mate the flat side of the load cell with the mount. Once all screws are securely fastened, insert the M5 axle joint from this side and fix in place. Next, we assemble the throttle arm. We start fastening the small M6 screws and 30 studs in these positions. The flange on the bushing indicates the outside of the plate. Place one universal plate in the slot above and screw in the other side. For now, we just leave everything finger tight and set it aside. Now for the base. We take a mounting bracket and a throttle side plate. Place the side plate on the inside and fasten together at the rear point using a small screw and a 40 round stud. If you want the pedals tilted backwards, use this hole instead. Then we insert the hexagonal bolt and screw on the 20 stainless steel stud. Place the throttle arm on the stud. This may require some force depending on the tolerances. Once in place, insert the other SS stud. Screw it in as I'm doing here with the help of a screw. Tighten the nut against the stud and turn using an Allen key. Once in, hold the Allen key in place and loosen the nut to get the screw out. Bring in the load cell in this orientation and fasten the other side plate and mounting bracket with the small M6 screws on both ends. Install a 40 stud in the front with the small screws, leaving it finger tight for now, and secure all four corners of the base. For the spring insert, take the throttle insert and place it in the universal plate. Secure in place with this clip. Insert the throttle rod from the clip side, followed by the spring and the throttle disc. The side with the larger protrusion goes in the spring. Now we screw on the M5 safety nut till about 10 mm of the thread is exposed, followed by a regular M5 nut. Screw the entire assembly into the axle joint. To secure properly, first finger tighten the nut against the axle joint, then hold the bolt with an Allen key and use a wrench to tighten the nut against the joint. Now place this top plate in the slot and secure all the screws on the arm. We are using the stiffer setting here. Both the load cell and the top universal plate are in the rear slot. We add a bit of preload to the spring by holding the safety nut and rotating the bolt. Once the system is in tension, we can secure the front stud. To switch to the softer setting, loosen these 4 screws, reduce the spring preload, and move the top plate and the load cell to the front slots. More information on setting up the pedals can be found on our website. Finally, we can mount the pedal face using the countersunk M5 screw and the hammer nut. Once in place, tighten it down till the rear face is meeting with the pedal body. The pedal face can be mounted in the opposite orientation for more pedal height. We start the brake assembly by mounting the load cell on the mounting plate with the M6 screws and nuts. Please make sure to mate the flat side of the load cell with the mount. Once all screws are securely fastened, we insert the M6 axial joint from this side. Use washers for both sides and fasten securely. Now insert the set screw into the axle joint till about 25 mm is exposed. You can check this against the head width of the larger side of the wrench. Now screw on an M6 nut, finger tighten the nut against the axial joint as before, hold the set screw with an Allen key and tighten the nut against the joint housing and set it aside. Next, screw on an M6 nut on a large M6 screw and tighten it till there is no gap. Insert it into the female rod end, followed by 2 washers, and put the screw in this rocker hole in this orientation. Fasten tightly from the other side with an M6 nut. Please don't use a washer here. Now snap the bearing in place on the brake arm with the flange on the outside, and repeat for the opposite side. Fasten 3 30 mm studs in these positions with the small M6 screws. Insert a large M6 screw in the bearing, screw on an M6 nut and tighten properly. Now place one washer and the rocker assembly on the screw, followed by the single steel 20 mm stud. Clip the brake insert into one of the universal plates and place it in the assembly with the clip side down. Place another small plate in the top slot and the other brake arm. Use 4 small screws from this end to secure all 6 stud screws. For the rocker screw, we hold the nut with the spanner and tighten the screw on the other side. Check that the rocker can move freely. Now we come to the trickiest part of the assembly. For this, we need the brake spring, the ring nut, 2 M6 nuts, and the brake rod. Keep the rod end in this position so that it is out of the way. Laying the brake arm on the side can help in this step. Insert the throttle rod in the brake insert and the spring from the other side. Screw on the ring nut, followed by the 2 nuts. We expose only a small amount of thread for each nut. Once the nuts are in, making sure we have minimal gap between the 3 nuts, align the rod end with the bolt. Hold all 3 nuts. We start screwing the bolt into the rod end. With the rocker sitting against this stud at the back, there should be 1 mm gap between the bolt head and the bottom of the insert. Now tighten the topmost nut against the rod end. Try not to screw the main bolt in and out from the rod end. Rotate the rod end to fit the wrench in the gap. We assemble the base in the same manner as the throttle, but here we place the side plate on the outside of the mounting brackets. Now we come to the concluding steps. Screw on a nut on the top of the axle joint followed by the hexagonal stud. Put a nut on the male rod end and screw it in on the top side of the tie rod. Just as we did previously for the female rod end, Use the remaining large M6 screw, 1 nut, and 2 washers to fasten the rod end to the rocker. Please use only the 1.25 mm washers for their spacing, otherwise the large screw will clash with the brake arm body. The position of the rod end on the rocker determines the progression curve. The corresponding gap and tie rod dimensions can be found on the setup page on our website. This step is optional, but it removes any unwanted play from the load cell assembly. Fix a 40 mm stud to one brake side plate with a small screw. From the other side, insert a small screw and tighten to hold the load cell in compression. Be careful to not over tighten and bend the side plate. Finally, we can mount the pedal face. To add preload, tighten the nut into the spring. It is recommended to keep this preload at a minimum. Now screw the middle nut against the ring nut. Hold the middle nut with the wrench. And now rotate the ring nut in the opposite direction as before. To loosen, hold the middle nut and rotate the ring nut into the spring just enough to break the lock. To adjust the tie rod length, loosen this nut and rotate the axial joint to achieve the required gap size and secure this nut. For this entire process, the set screw stays fixed in the axial joint. Now unlock the top nut and rotate the entire tie rod apart from the male rod end to achieve the desired tie rod length and secure. The complete setup guide along with the instructions for electronics and calibration can be found on our website. Thank you for watching and supporting Najam Simtec.